Hello and welcome to the Learn English Lab. Today's podcast is our English Listening Practice podcast, and it's a special deep dive we've titled 40 C1 Level Vocabulary on Religion. Our mission today really is to equip you with a robust, advanced English vocabulary. This is crucial stuff for anyone aspiring to C1 proficiency and, maybe even beyond. It's about allowing you to navigate conversations about faith with confidence and real nuance. You see, this isn't just about adding words to a list somewhere. It's much more about unlocking a richer understanding of, philosophy, history, literature, global cultures, all that, enabling you to grasp complex ideas without feeling, overwhelmed. Think about it. Religion, in all its myriad forms, has been, an undeniable architect of societies, hasn't it? A wellspring for magnificent art, a powerful catalyst for debates, and the anchor for countless traditions across every corner of the globe. Having the precise language, the right words to discuss these profound topics with depth, accuracy, and sensitivity, that's truly empowering. It really opens doors to entirely new levels of comprehension and expression.
That's a really keen observation. It highlights exactly why this kind of thematic vocabulary is so, indispensable for advanced learners. At the C1 level, the focus genuinely shifts, doesn't it? It goes beyond merely recognizing basic terms. We delve into words that carry significant historical weight, doctrinal implications, and deep philosophical resonance. For this deep dive, we've meticulously curated a collection of terms. They draw from various faiths with a particular emphasis on Christianity, naturally, but also thoughtfully touching upon Buddhism and Islam. And these terms are more than just, lexicon expanders. They are like keys that unlock entirely new avenues for critical thinking and engaging conversation about really complex societal elements. Consider the nuanced distinctions, for instance, between divine and sacred. Grasping these allows for a far more insightful analysis of religious thought and practice than, say, a simple synonym would provide. So prepare for an enriching journey of discovery today, one that promises not just linguistic enlightenment, but profound cultural insight as well.
Okay, let's kick off our linguistic exploration right at the bedrock then, with some of the most fundamental terms within Christian belief. We'll begin by examining how central figures are not just named, but truly understood and described within this vast tradition. These are the conceptual cornerstones, really.
An excellent starting point. Our first term is Father. Now, in Christianity, this isn't just a casual name. It's God's primary title, used consistently and deeply revered by believers. You'll frequently encounter synonyms, too, like Heavenly Father, God the Father, or even Divine Parent, each carrying a similar relational weight.
So it really defines a relationship, doesn't it? It implies a certain kind of connection rather than just a formal label.
Absolutely. The term Father goes far beyond a mere identifier. You see, in personal devotion, Christians regularly address God as Father. They're seeking guidance, protection, comfort. It reflects a deeply personal, almost familial relationship at the heart of their faith. And theologically speaking, Father denotes the first person of the Holy Trinity. So it's foundational to the core doctrines of Christianity and its understanding of the divine nature itself. In communal worship, too, sermons frequently invoke God as Father. This fosters a powerful sense of unity, a shared identity among the congregation, reminding them of their collective spiritual parentage, as it were.
I see. So it works on multiple levels: personal, theological, communal.
Exactly. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, Father isn't just a label. It communicates a profound connection, a sense of both nurturing care and ultimate authority, which is absolutely central to the Christian perception of God. This leads us to consider, how such a concept of a parental deity might profoundly influence the daily faith and spiritual practices of its followers, and indeed shape their communal gatherings and interactions.
That truly frames it in a powerful and comprehensive way. Moving on, our next term is Christ. This refers to the pivotal figure upon whose teachings Christianity itself is established. We often hear equivalent terms like Messiah, Savior, or the Anointed One, right? Each echoing a specific aspect of his role.
Yes, and what's fascinating here is how Christ encapsulates both a historical figure and a profound theological role, that of the Anointed One, a figure of immense prophetic significance in Jewish tradition, adopted by Christians. His ethical teachings, focusing on things like love, compassion, forgiveness, they directly inform the daily lives and moral compass of billions. They form the very bedrock of Christian conduct and values. Culturally, Christ is an omnipresent figure. Just think of the art, vividly depicted in countless artworks throughout history, from serene nativity scenes to the dramatic passion narratives, each representation conveying profound spiritual and human stories across diverse artistic traditions.
You see it everywhere.
everywhere. And furthermore, his resurrection, well, it's not just an event on a calendar. It is the absolute cornerstone of Easter celebrations, and indeed of Christian doctrine itself. It embodies hope, triumph over death, the promise of new life. So this dual significance as a historical teacher and a theological redeemer means that Christ is a term just laden with deep meaning, shaping both individual spiritual paths and collective cultural expressions.
Building seamlessly on that, our third term is Jesus. This refers specifically to the historical man whose followers believe to be the Son of God and whose life and teachings are the very foundation of the Christian religion. Other terms you might frequently hear include Jesus Christ, Son of God, or Redeemer, often used interchangeably in common discourse, perhaps.
They are often used interchangeably, yes, but Jesus carries a specific emphasis on his human historicity, his role as a tangible, teachable figure, his narrative teaching methods, for example. Most famously, through parables like the Good Samaritan or the Prodigal Son, they continue to illuminate moral lessons and spiritual truths, making complex ideas accessible and memorable even today. For devotees, praying specifically in the name of Jesus is a central practice. It emphasizes his role as an intercessor, a direct connection to the divine, a focal point for their faith and spiritual appeals.
So the name itself holds power in prayer.
Precisely. And beyond faith, the life and events of Jesus remain a subject of rigorous scholarly discussion and historical inquiry. It bridges the fields of religion and history, historians, theologians, archaeologists. They continually debate aspects of his existence, his actual words, the context of his ministry in first century Palestine. So Jesus is not merely a name, it's the anchor that grounds the faith in a real-world figure whose life, teachings, and very existence are a source of ongoing contemplation and academic investigation.
And to conclude this foundational segment, we have saint. This describes an individual who, after their death, is officially recognized by a Christian church, particularly the Catholic and Orthodox churches, as exceptionally holy. Synonyms commonly include holy person, canonized figure, or maybe a blessed soul.
Right. And this concept offers a really compelling bridge, doesn't it, between the divine and the human, the extraordinary and the everyday. Saints serve as powerful exemplars of faith and conduct. They demonstrate virtues and devotion in ways that inspire adherence. Pilgrims, for instance, undertake often arduous journeys to visit shrines and cathedrals dedicated to their patron saints. They engage in veneration practices that reflect deep personal devotion and communal reverence. The stories of these individuals, whether historical figures like Francis of Assisi or maybe more contemporary ones like Mother Teresa, continue to influence modern ethics. They spur acts of profound charity, justice, and selflessness.
So they provide practical examples of living the faith.
Exactly. And the process of canonization, particularly in the Catholic Church, is a meticulous one. It's not taken lightly. It often requires proof of miracles attributed to the deceased's intercession before official recognition is granted. So a saint is not just a title. It represents a life lived in exemplary devotion whose enduring impact continues to shape collective morality and individual acts of profound goodness for generations.
Okay, fascinating. With our understanding of the divine foundations and central figures solidified, let's now transition to the organizational aspect of faith. We'll explore the human architecture within religious traditions, the leaders, the dedicated members, and the crucial roles they fulfill within their spiritual communities. This segment helps us grasp how abstract beliefs are translated into structured communal practice.
Indeed, a good transition. Our next term is Pope. This is the esteemed leader of the Roman Catholic Church, a figure of immense global significance. He is also respectfully referred to as the Pontiff, the Vicar of Christ, or the Holy Father, each title conveying a layer of his spiritual and administrative authority.
That is undeniably one of the most influential roles in global religion, isn't it? A single person leading over 1 billion people.
Absolutely. The Pope embodies a unique and potent blend of global, spiritual, and moral authority, not just within the Catholic Church, but as a significant voice on a vast array of global issues, peace, poverty, environment. He articulates these positions notably through encyclicals. These are formal papal letters, often quite lengthy, that serve as authoritative teachings on critical, social, moral, and theological matters. They influence public discourse far beyond Catholic circles. The election of a new pope, the conclave, is a process steeped in centuries of institutional tradition. It takes place in the Vatican, draws intense global media attention. It's quite the spectacle. And for the faithful, personal interactions with the Pope, even just a fleeting moment to receive a blessing during a public audience, are deeply cherished spiritual experiences. The solemnity of his election, rich with ancient customs, and the profound devotion shown by adherents worldwide truly underscore the institutional weight and personal significance of his profound role.
Following the Pope in the hierarchical structure, we have the bishop. This individual is a high-ranking priest tasked with supervising all the churches and clergy within a specific geographical area, typically a city or region known as a diocese. Equivalent terms you might encounter are overseer, diocesan leader, or an episcopal authority.
That's right. A bishop represents a critical layer of governance and pastoral care within many Christian denominations, not just Catholic, but Anglican, Orthodox too. Their ceremonial roles are quite profound. For example, a bishop is often the only cleric empowered to ordain new priests or confirm members, confirming their specific authority in clergy development and sacramental life. Beyond ritual, they wield significant administrative governance. They set theological and practical policies for their entire diocese, guiding its spiritual and temporal affairs, finances, property, etc. And historically, bishops often held considerable political sway. They acted as key intermediaries between religious authority and secular power, influencing civic decisions, sometimes even acting as rulers in their own right in certain periods.
So a mix of spiritual and administrative power, historically even political power.
Definitely. Their role, therefore, extends beyond spiritual guidance to encompassing significant administrative oversight. And historically, their influence often intertwined religious mandates with civil governance in complex ways.
And then, bringing it down to a more immediate local level for many communities, we have the pastor. This describes a priest or a minister who is directly in charge of a local church or congregation. Synonyms commonly include clergyman, shepherd, which is quite evocative or reverent, the latter often used as a direct address.
Yes, the pastor is, for many people, the most direct and accessible point of contact within their faith community, providing essential spiritual guidance and invaluable community support. They frequently offer personal counseling to members facing life's challenges, illness, grief, family issues, embodying a deeply supportive and nurturing role. The Sunday worship services, a cornerstone of weekly spiritual life for many, are of course led by the dedicated pastor. They deliver sermons, administer sacraments like communion or baptism, and facilitate communal prayer. It's also worth noting the remarkable adaptability required of pastors. Especially in rural areas or smaller denominations, a single pastor might serve multiple small congregations spread over a wide area. It showcases a dedication to ministry that often transcends geographical boundaries and diverse community needs. They are truly the shepherd, in the most literal sense, intimately nurturing their flock, sometimes across vast and challenging geographical areas.
From the formalized leaders, let's now pivot to the dedicated members within specific religious orders. First, we have brother. This term refers to a man who is a member of a religious group, particularly an order of monks or friars. You might also hear terms like friar, religious sibling, or monastic member.
Right. This term illuminates a life of profound dedication within specific religious orders. It emphasizes community, shared commitment, and often a life of service that extends beyond individual spiritual pursuit. A brother typically takes solemn vows, often of poverty, chastity, and obedience. These signify a deep, lifelong commitment to their order and its spiritual mission. Within a monastery or friary, brothers are integral to maintaining the daily routines. They contribute to everything from communal prayer and liturgical services to manual labor like farming or craft work, underscoring their communal living duties and shared responsibility. Furthermore, many orders have brothers dedicated to outreach efforts like teaching, healthcare, or missionary work, spreading teachings and offering aid abroad. This demonstrates how their commitment often translates into active service to wider communities. It truly highlights a life rooted in shared purpose and collective spiritual endeavor.
And speaking of spreading teachings abroad, our next term is missionary. This is an individual who is sent to a foreign country primarily to teach and speak about their religion, with the aim of persuading others to join their faith, particularly within the Christian tradition, though other faiths have similar roles. Other terms that capture similar roles include evangelist, proselytizer, or apostle, though apostle has specific historical connotations too.
Yes, the drive behind missionaries is often a fascinating blend of, well, faith spreading and, historically, the provision of essential services. For instance, many early missionaries were instrumental in establishing schools and hospitals in remote areas, providing education, healthcare, and sometimes even infrastructure that fundamentally altered local communities. For better or worse, depending on the context and perspective, beyond direct evangelism, many missionaries also became crucial and sometimes controversial ethnographers. Their journals and reports inadvertently documented indigenous cultures, languages, and customs. This created a complex legacy that scholars still reevaluate today for its ties to colonialism, cultural exchange, and potential assimilation.
It's a complex history, definitely.
Very complex. Now, in our increasingly interconnected world, modern missionaries are adapting their methods. They're leveraging digital platforms, social media, online courses to reach wider global audiences. It shows how this ancient calling continues to evolve with technological advancements and changing social landscapes.
Staying within the sphere of dedicated religious life, we have monk. This refers to a member of a male religious group who lives a communal, often contemplative life, typically in a monastery. Synonyms that capture aspects of this lifestyle include ascetic, recluse, or cenobite, depending on the specific monastic tradition, whether they live more solitarily or communally.
Right. The life of a monk often signifies a profound commitment to spiritual discipline, intense contemplation, and remarkably, the preservation of human knowledge through centuries. A monk might spend countless hours meditating in silence, engaging in rigorous contemplative practices designed to cultivate inner peace, detachment, and a deeper connection to the divine, or, in Buddhism, for example, an enlightened state. Historically, monks played an indispensable role as custodians of learning, especially in Europe's Middle Ages. They meticulously copied ancient manuscripts by hand, classical texts, religious scriptures, preserving them through periods of turmoil and ensuring the survival of knowledge for future generations. Their lifestyle disciplines are often strict and varied, observing vows of silence, following rigid dietary restrictions, adhering to demanding schedules of prayer and work, all aimed at fostering spiritual growth and detachment from worldly distractions. Their devotion through centuries has truly kept both spiritual traditions and secular learning alive in many ways.
And the female counterpart pursuing a similar path of spiritual dedication is a nun. This is a member of a female religious group who lives a communal life, typically within a convent or monastery. Other terms you might hear are sister, religious woman, or convent dweller.
Similar to monks, yes. Nuns dedicate their lives to spiritual devotion and communal service, often within the cloistered environment of a convent. Their contributions to society have been absolutely immense, particularly in the fields of education and healthcare. Historically, nuns frequently taught children, especially girls and the poor, ran schools, established and staffed hospitals and orphanages, fulfilling vital educational and charitable roles that uplifted communities worldwide. They embrace vows of chastity, poverty, and obedience, signifying a profound, lifelong commitment to God and service, focusing their energies entirely on spiritual pursuits and the welfare of others. Moreover, throughout history, many influential nuns have become powerful advocates for social justice. They championed the rights of the marginalized, pushed for reforms, and inspired significant societal change, demonstrating their active engagement with the world despite their often secluded lives. Think of figures like Hildegard of Bingen centuries ago, or many modern nuns working on the front lines of social issues.
Really impactful roles, historically and today. Okay, now, let's broaden our perspective a bit, zooming out from individual roles to look at the larger fabric of religious communities. We'll examine how people affiliate, how these groups are organized, and how significant life events are marked within the religious sphere. These terms help us grasp the wider social structures and personal journeys of faith.
An excellent shift in focus. Our first term in this segment is Catholic. This specifically relates to, or belongs to, the Western branch of the Christian Church, which is famously led by the Pope. Based in Rome, you'll often hear it referred to as Roman Catholic, Papal, or sometimes invoking its original meaning, universal, the universal church.
This encompasses an enormous portion of the world's Christian population, extending across virtually every continent. It's truly global.
It certainly is. To be Catholic signifies adherence to a global communion, unified by a central authority, the Pope and bishops, and distinct rituals. Core to Catholic practice are the 7 sacraments, the Eucharist, or Holy Communion, being central. These are essential sacramental practices believed to be channels of divine grace. Catholic schools and universities, renowned worldwide, consistently emphasize moral and ethical education alongside academics, reflecting institutional values that guide their comprehensive educational mission. This global unity is beautifully illustrated during major feast days and holy days like Christmas or Easter. Catholic communities across diverse cultures celebrate together, often with similar liturgies, highlighting a profound sense of shared faith and tradition despite vast geographical and linguistic differences. It is indeed a vast tradition that, while unified under the Pope, manifests in incredibly rich and diverse cultural expressions worldwide. Truly a global phenomenon.
In significant contrast, historically at least, we have Protestant. This term relates to, or identifies with, the various Western branches of the Christian Church that emerged historically distinct from the Roman Catholic Church, starting with the Reformation. Synonyms include Reformed, Evangelical, or broadly non-Catholic Christian. though evangelical has specific connotations too.
Yes, and when we connect this to the broader historical picture, the term Protestant emerged from that pivotal moment, the Reformation in the 16th century. It marked a profound schism and a significant shift in Christian thought, practice, and authority. Protestant musical traditions, particularly through congregational hymn singing, are often a defining feature. Think of composers like Bach or the hymns of the Wesleys. It inspires worship services with a focus on active participation and lyrical theological expression. The Reformation, as you mentioned, directly led to the birth of numerous Protestant denominations: Lutherans, Calvinists, Reformed Presbyterian, Anglicans, though sometimes seen as a middle way, Methodists, Baptists, Pentecostals. A huge spectrum, each with distinct theological interpretations and organizational structures. Moreover, certain strands of Protestant ethics, particularly the famous Protestant work ethic discussed by Max Weber, have been extensively studied for their potential influence on modern capitalism and work cultures, particularly in Northern Europe and North America. It demonstrates a significant societal impact far beyond just religious observances. This lineage has indeed led to a rich tapestry of denominations and ethical frameworks that have shaped societies in enduring and often unexpected ways.
Next, we have congregation. This describes a group of people who regularly gather together, primarily in a church, synagogue, mosque, or temple, to participate in religious worship and prayer. You might also use terms like assembly, flock, or worshipers to describe them.
That's right. A congregation is truly the living, beating heart of local religious life. A dynamic community where individuals come together not merely to worship, but also to offer mutual support, fellowship, and sometimes collective action. Communal participation is key. The congregation often sings hymns or chants, recites prayers together, listens to sermons, and engages in scripture readings, fostering a shared spiritual experience. The growth of these communities is often tangible. Expanding congregations frequently necessitate the building of new churches, mosques, or temples, or the expansion of existing facilities, reflecting their vitality and outreach. Increasingly, particularly in diverse urban settings, congregations are actively promoting inclusivity. They're striving to be welcoming spaces that reflect and embrace the broad spectrum of society around them, emphasizing modern dynamics within religious communities that adapt to contemporary values like diversity and social justice. They form the vibrant, supportive core of local faith expression for many people.
Moving to the physical and administrative space associated with a local church, particularly in Christian traditions like Catholicism, Anglicanism, or Lutheranism, we have parish. This describes a specific geographical area containing a church, which is under the pastoral care of a priest or minister. Other terms you might encounter are district, community, or ecclesiastical area.
Precisely. The parish provides a crucial geographical and communal anchor for faith, organizing local religious life within a defined boundary. Parishes are often vibrant hubs of local activity, frequently hosting annual festivals, fundraisers, social gatherings, and community outreach events that bring people together. Their role extends beyond purely spiritual services into the social fabric of the neighborhood. Logistically, especially in sprawling rural regions or areas with declining clergy numbers, priests often find themselves serving multiple parishes. This demonstrates the practical challenges and dedicated nature of pastoral ministry across a wider area. And historically, parish records meticulously detailing baptisms, marriages, and burials are incredibly invaluable for genealogists and social historians. They demonstrate how deeply intertwined religious structures were with civil life and family histories for many centuries, often serving as the primary record-keeping institutions before state registration became common.
Now let's turn to a profoundly personal journey in faith. Convert. This is an individual who has consciously changed their religion, or sometimes their fundamental opinion or belief system. Other relevant terms include neophyte, meaning a beginner, proselyte, someone persuaded to convert, or new believer.
Yes, a convert truly represents a profound personal journey, a deeply transformative shift in belief that can have far-reaching ripple effects, not just for the individual, but for their immediate community, family, and even broader public discourse. Converts often share powerful personal testimonies detailing their journey of change. They illustrate their spiritual awakening, the reasons for their shift, and their new commitment, which can be highly inspiring or sometimes controversial to others. For missionaries and evangelists in proselytizing faiths, actively seeking new converts is a central focus of their work. It emphasizes the imperative they feel to spread their faith. Furthermore, when famous or influential individuals convert, it can sometimes precipitate broader cultural shifts, spark public debate, attract media attention, and influence perceptions of a particular faith. Their stories are often compelling narratives of deep personal conviction and profound spiritual transformation, revealing the dynamic and sometimes fluid nature of faith identities.
Closely related to that personal conviction, we have follower. This describes someone who profoundly respects, actively supports, and believes in a specific individual, like a prophet or guru, a particular teaching, or an entire system of ideas, like a religion or philosophy. Synonyms that also capture this dedication include disciple, adherent, or devotee.
Right. And the concept of a follower is, in fact, universal across many systems of thought, extending beyond just religion, think political movements, or even fan followings. However, in a religious context, it signifies a deep, often active commitment. Followers typically gather regularly for spiritual teachings, worship services, or community events, demonstrating their group devotion to a particular leader or doctrine. In our contemporary digital era, online followers frequently play a significant role in spreading religious messages, sharing content, engaging in discussions, and forming virtual communities, highlighting how faith is communicated and disseminated in the modern world. Moreover, loyal followers are often driven by deep conviction to defend their faith against criticism or opposition, emphasizing their profound commitment and sense of belonging to that group or belief system. It truly speaks to a deep adherence to a set of principles and, often, to a central figure or text at the heart of their belief system.
A physical journey undertaken for spiritual reasons brings us to pilgrim. This is a religious person who embarks on a journey to a sacred place or shrine, typically for a holy cause, penance, or profound spiritual experience. They might also be called a wayfarer, devotee traveler, or seeker.
A pilgrim truly embodies a spiritual quest where the physical journey itself often mirrors an intense internal transformation. It's not just about getting there. Annually, millions of pilgrims undertake arduous treks to holy sites. Think of the Hajj to Mecca for Muslims, walking the Camino de Santiago in Spain for Christians, visiting Jerusalem for Jews, Christians, and Muslims, or journeying to sacred mountains or rivers in various Eastern traditions. These are significant, often challenging journeys. The pilgrim's quest is often deeply personal, seeking not just a destination, but profound spiritual enlightenment, forgiveness, healing, or a closer connection to the divine en route. The journey itself is transformative. These revered holy sites, often ancient and steeped in history, are designed to accommodate and welcome pilgrims from distant lands. They represent a fascinating intersection of religious devotion, cultural tourism, and historical significance, drawing people for both spiritual solace and cultural immersion. These strenuous treks are as much about the journey and the personal transformation experienced along the way as they are about reaching the revered destination itself.
And finally for this segment, a significant rite of passage in many Christian traditions. Christening. This is a Christian religious ceremony during which a baby or young child is formally named and ritually admitted into the Christian church, usually involving water baptism. Other terms often used interchangeably include baptism, naming rite, or initiation, though baptism can also apply to adults.
That's a good point. While often used for infants, baptism is the core sacrament. Christening specifically emphasizes the naming and welcoming aspect, especially for babies. It is indeed a profoundly significant rite of passage, marking an individual's formal entry into a specific faith community. It's a moment imbued with both profound spiritual meaning and immense familial and communal importance. The ceremony often includes a blessing of the child by the priest or minister and the assembled family and friends, underscoring its significant social aspects and the communal welcome into the faith. Godparents who make promises to support the child's spiritual upbringing play a crucial symbolic role and are central figures in the christening ceremony. Furthermore, it's fascinating to observe the cultural variations that exist in christening or baptismal practices across different Christian denominations and regions, full immersion versus sprinkling, infant versus believer's baptism, reflecting the diverse ways this foundational ceremony is observed and celebrated globally. It stands as a foundational event for many families, marking the beginning of a child's spiritual journey within the church community.
Okay, great. Now we're going to broaden our scope considerably, delving into core concepts that deeply shape faith, examining the rituals that define religious practice, and even respectfully touching upon other major spiritual traditions beyond Christianity. This segment will truly expand both our linguistic capabilities and our cultural horizons.
Sounds good. Let's begin with blessing. This is fundamentally a prayer or an invocation asking for God's protection, favor, and help. Or sometimes it's the bestowing of that favor itself, often conferring spiritual good. Synonyms frequently used include benediction, especially a formal blessing at the end of a service, invocation, or grace, often said before meals.
Blessings truly seem to be woven into the fabric of so many different life events and daily occurrences across many cultures.
They certainly are. A blessing is a powerful expression of hope, divine favor, and good wishes. Earnestly sought in moments of profound joy, like weddings, significant transition, like starting a journey, and even deep crisis or illness. Priests, ministers, rabbis, imams routinely give solemn blessings at key life cycle events, applying to these significant moments of transition and celebration. Incorporating daily blessings, such as grace before meals or prayers upon waking or sleeping, can foster a profound sense of gratitude and mindfulness, highlighting how these prayers become integrated into the rhythm of routine life. Furthermore, leaders, both religious and sometimes even secular ones in certain contexts, frequently seek divine blessings for their decisions, for their communities, or for the success of important undertakings. It ties into the deep-seated belief in divine guidance and support. It is both a communal act, like a blessing given to a congregation, and a deeply personal one, often interwoven into the very fabric of daily life to cultivate gratitude and a conscious reliance on a higher power.
Next, we respectfully move to another major global faith with the term Buddhist. This refers to someone who follows the spiritual and philosophical teachings attributed to Siddhartha Gautama, known as the Buddha. You might also hear them described as a follower of Buddha, a dharmic adherent, as Buddhism is one of the dharmic religions originating in India, or a Zen practitioner if they follow that specific school.
And it's particularly insightful how the term Buddhist immediately evokes a rich tapestry of practices like meditation and core tenets such as mindfulness, nonviolence, and compassion. It demonstrates the profound philosophical and ethical contributions of this faith to global thought. A devout Buddhist might meditate for hours, not merely for relaxation, but for cultivating deep inner peace, insight, vipassana, and ultimately enlightenment or liberation, nirvana, highlighting their key spiritual practices. Buddhists worldwide celebrate various festivals like Vesak, which commemorates the Buddha's birth, enlightenment, and death. These often involve vibrant lantern processions, temple visits, and acts of generosity relating to their rich and diverse cultural expressions. Many influential Buddhists, including figures like the Dalai Lama or Thich Nhat Hanh, actively promote mindfulness and compassionate living, emphasizing these core teachings that have resonated far beyond traditional Buddhist communities, influencing modern psychology, therapy, and well-being practices globally.
A universal ceremony, deeply rooted in human experience across cultures, is our next term: funeral. This refers to a religious or secular ceremony held in connection with the burial or cremation of a deceased person, marking their passing and honoring their life. Other terms are burial rite, memorial service, which might happen later or without the body present, or the more formal obsequies.
Funerals are indeed universal rites of passage. They reflect deeply held beliefs about life, death, the afterlife, or lack thereof, and remembrance across all cultures. The ceremony typically honors the deceased's life, focusing on remembrance, acknowledging their contributions, sharing grief, and providing comfort to the bereaved. It serves crucial social and psychological functions. It's fascinating how funeral customs vary significantly, from elaborate multi-day wakes common in some cultures, to solemn, quiet gatherings in others, from burial to cremation to other forms of disposition, highlighting the immense diversity in how different societies approach death, mourning, and the body. Eulogies, often delivered during funerals by family, friends, or clergy, play a crucial role. They serve as speeches that celebrate the person's life, recount their virtues and stories, and offer comfort and a sense of closure to the bereaved. The profound variations in customs across cultures and faiths speak volumes about differing understandings of remembrance, the journey of the soul, the nature of grief, and the fundamental human need for ritualistic closure when facing mortality.
Now, a term that frequently carries strong and often controversial connotations: cult. This generally refers to a group of people with religious or spiritual beliefs and practices regarded by others as strange, unorthodox, or extreme. Often characterized by devotion to a person or object and employing manipulative techniques. Synonyms can include sect, though this can also be neutral, fringe group, or esoteric order. New religious movement is often preferred in academic circles as a more neutral term.
Yes, this term, cult, is undeniably loaded and often used pejoratively, sometimes quite carelessly. Sociologically, though, it's used to describe groups that operate distinctly outside established religious or societal norms. They're frequently characterized by, as you said, extreme or unusual views, an intense, unquestioning devotion to a charismatic leader, and often the use of high-pressure tactics or isolation of their members from mainstream society and former connections, demonstrating controlling aspects. Media investigations and documentaries frequently expose the practices, alleged abuses, psychological, financial, physical, and sometimes tragic outcomes associated with certain groups labeled as cults, reflecting their potential negative impact on individuals and families. And importantly, many former members courageously share their stories of involvement and eventual exit, emphasizing their challenging journey of recovery, deprogramming, and reintegration into society. These accounts provide vital insights into the dynamics of recruitment, control, and the psychological impact of such groups. Understanding its sociological and psychological usage and the controversy around the term itself is key to analyzing certain complex social phenomena and group dynamics without necessarily endorsing the label's negative connotations in every case.
Moving to a concept that humanity has grappled with for millennia, we have fate. This is the supposed power that some people believe controls everything that occurs, determining events with an unchangeable and inevitable course, predestination. Other terms that convey similar ideas are destiny, providence, often implying divine guidance, or the evocative kismet from Arabic Turkish.
Right. The concept of fate is a profoundly complex philosophical and theological question. It invites deep contemplation. Does an unchangeable destiny truly exist, or do we possess genuine free will to shape our own outcomes? Or is it some mix of both? For many believers across different traditions, accepting certain events as fate is intertwined with the notion of divine will, karma, or a grand cosmic plan. This can tie into their faith and provide solace or acceptance in the face of suffering or uncertainty. Literature across cultures is replete with explorations of fate. Think of ancient Greek tragedies like Oedipus Rex or Shakespearean plays or modern novels. They frequently explore the theme of individuals challenging fate, fulfilling prophecies, or grappling with inescapable destinies. It's a perennial theme. Interestingly, some prayer traditions, rather than passively accepting fate, incorporate supplications aimed at influencing or altering a seemingly predetermined course of events, showing beliefs about the possibility of divine intervention or influencing one's destiny through merit or devotion. This concept prompts us to consider how belief in fate, or the lack thereof, profoundly shapes human agency, individual decision-making, risk-taking, and collective societal responses to unforeseen events like disasters or triumphs in different cultural and religious contexts.
Our next major world religion is Islam. This is the monotheistic religion of Muslims, believing in one God, Allah, which was established by the Prophet Muhammad in the 7th century CE, with its holy book known as the Quran. Synonyms include Muslim faith, Islamic religion, or often translated as submission to God, which captures the core meaning of the Arabic word Islam.
Exactly. Islam, meaning submission to God, is one of the world's largest and fastest growing religions, characterized by specific practices and deeply rooted in a rich history and a profound scholarly tradition. Islam centers on the 5 pillars, which are the core framework of Muslim life. These include the Shahada, the declaration of faith, there is no God but Allah, and Muhammad is his messenger. Salat, the 5 obligatory daily prayers performed facing Mecca. Zakat, compulsory charity to support the needy. Psalm, fasting from dawn until sunset during the month of Ramadan. And Hajj, the pilgrimage to Mecca that every able-bodied Muslim should undertake at least once. These highlight the core practices. Ramadan, the 9th month of the Islamic lunar calendar, is a sacred observance. It involves not just fasting from food and drink, but also increased prayer, reflection, and community spirit, relating to their annual spiritual purification and communal devotion. And scholars across the globe, both Muslim and non-Muslim, extensively study Islam's vast history, its theology, intricate legal systems, Sharia, its diverse philosophical schools, and its stunning artistic and architectural achievements over centuries. This ties into its immense academic importance and rich intellectual tradition.
And the central, revered figure of Islam is Muhammad. This is the Arab prophet who Muslims believe received revelations from God, Allah, through the angel Gabriel, which form the basis of the Islamic religion documented in the Quran. He's universally known by Muslims as Prophet Muhammad, the messenger of God, Rasulullah, or the seal of the prophets, Khatam an-Nabiyyin, indicating he is the last in the line of prophets, including Adam, Noah, Abraham, Moses, and Jesus.
Precisely. Muhammad is indeed the central and most revered human figure in Islam, considered by Muslims to be the final prophet sent by God to guide humanity. His revelations, communicated to him over 23 years, are believed by Muslims to form the Holy Quran, which they consider the literal word of God in Arabic, core to their scriptures and guidance. Muslims globally show deep reverence for Muhammad. They celebrate his birthday, Mawlid an-Nabi, in many parts of the world with various festivities, poetry praising him, and acts of charity, showing their profound love and respect for his life and teachings. Countless biographies, known as the Sirah, and collections of his sayings and actions, the Hadith, meticulously detail Muhammad's life, his character, his teachings, and the historical context of early Islam. These relate to the extensive studies of his spiritual and historical journey that continue to inform Muslim practice and belief today. His life and teachings are not merely historical facts for Muslims, they are revered as the ultimate example, sunnah, for conduct and piety worldwide.
Returning to communal dedicated life, we have monastery. This describes a building or complex of buildings where a community of monks, or sometimes nuns, live, work, and pray together, dedicated to a spiritual life under specific religious vows. Other terms for such a dwelling are abbey, often larger, led by an abbot or abbess; cloister, referring specifically to the covered walkway, but often used for the whole complex; or hermitage, for a solitary hermit, though sometimes small groups.
Right. A monastery is far more than just a dwelling. It is a vibrant center for spiritual life, often serving as a place of retreat, a repository of history and culture, and in many cases, a self-sustaining community. Many monasteries frequently offer retreats or guest houses for individuals seeking periods of reflection, quiet contemplation, spiritual direction, and renewal, focusing on their tradition of hospitality and communal outreach. Historically, ancient monasteries, particularly in Europe but also in Asia, have been absolutely crucial in preserving invaluable artifacts, manuscripts, art, and cultural heritage during periods of societal upheaval, tying them directly to the preservation of history and learning. Many monastic communities operate with a high degree of self-sufficiency. Monks or nuns often engage in farming, brewing, baking, craft-making, writing, or running guest houses on monastery grounds, showcasing their dedication to communal living, manual labor, or at labora, pray and work, and sustainable practices.
Then we have shrine. This is a place or building specifically designated for prayer or veneration, considered holy due to its sacred connection with a revered person, like a saint or martyr, a significant religious event, a sacred object, relic, or a manifestation of the divine. Synonyms include holy site, sanctuary, or reliquary, if it specifically houses relics.
Shrines serve as powerful focal points for devotion and remembrance. Places where the physical world is believed to intersect with the spiritual in a profound, tangible way. Devotees often engage in specific rituals at shrines, such as lighting candles or incense, offering flowers or food, leaving written prayers or votive offerings, circumambulating the shrine, or touching sacred objects, describing common acts of piety and seeking spiritual connection or blessing. These sites attract a diverse range of visitors, appealing to both devout pilgrims seeking solace, healing, or spiritual renewal, and tourists drawn by the historical, cultural, architectural, or artistic significance of the shrine, highlighting their dual appeal. Moreover, historical shrines frequently commemorate specific miraculous events, like apparitions, the burial places of saints or prophets, significant battles, or key moments in a faith's history, tying them deeply to collective memory and foundational narratives within a tradition. They are truly places imbued with intense meaning and emotional connection for countless individuals across many religions.
Related to structured practices, our next term is ritual. This describes a series of precisely fixed actions, gestures, or words performed in a particular order, characteristic of a religious ceremony, solemn observance, or rite of passage.
That's right. Other terms that convey this structured practice are ceremony, rite, or observance. Rituals often carry deep symbolic meaning. Rituals are the observable, often symbolic expressions of faith. They provide essential structure, meaning, and continuity to spiritual life, ranging from daily personal practices to grand communal ceremonies. Daily rituals, such as specific morning prayers, chanting mantras, mindful movements like yoga or tai chi in some contexts, or scripture reading, offer a sense of order, discipline, and spiritual grounding for many adherents. Life cycle rituals like wedding ceremonies, funeral rites, coming-of-age observances like bar mitzvah or confirmation, or initiation rites vary significantly by faith and culture. They relate to how major life transitions are marked, sanctified, and celebrated differently across the globe. It's particularly fascinating to observe how ancient rituals often continue to influence and even shape modern religious practices, sometimes adapted, sometimes preserved meticulously. This emphasizes their profound continuity through time and their enduring power to connect generations and embody core beliefs. They are the concrete, performative expressions of abstract beliefs and deeply held spiritual values,
Now for some foundational conceptual terms that help us define the very essence of faith. First, divine. This means originating from, directly relating to, or being supremely associated with God or a god, implying a transcendent supernatural quality beyond the ordinary human realm. Synonyms that capture this essence are godly, heavenly, or supernatural.
Exactly. The divine refers to that which is inherently beyond human comprehension or capability. The transcendent, the ultimate reality, the source of all being in many belief systems. A deep faith in divine intervention, miracles, answered prayers, divine guidance is often sought and reported during crises, times of need, or moments of profound gratitude. This highlights a belief in a higher power actively shaping or influencing worldly events. Sacred texts across religions frequently describe the attributes of the divine qualities like omnipotence, all-powerful, omniscience, all-knowing, omnipresence, everywhere at once, perfect goodness, eternal existence, or boundless love, compassion, tying into how scriptures characterize the nature of God or gods. Furthermore, artists throughout history have consistently striven to portray divine figures, celestial realms, or moments of divine revelation. They apply various artistic expressions, painting, sculpture, music, architecture to capture, often imperfectly, the ineffable, awe-inspiring, and numinous nature of the divine in their work. It is truly the realm from which miracles are perceived or sought, whose profound attributes are articulated in sacred texts, and which artists ceaselessly endeavor to portray, however partially, in their creative endeavors.
Closely related, but with an important nuanced difference, we have sacred. This describes something, an object, place, text, time, action, that is specifically connected with God, or a god, or is considered holy, revered, consecrated, and set apart from the profane or ordinary.
Yes. Other terms are holy, consecrated, or revered. The key is being set apart. While intimately related to divine, sacred often refers to the specific things in the created world that are imbued with special significance because of their connection to the divine. So the divine is the source, and the sacred is its manifestation or revered representation or conduit on earth. Sacred texts, for example, the Bible, the Quran, the Vedas, the Torah, are held as authoritative, divinely inspired, and provide profound moral guidance and spiritual truth within a faith, shaping the lives of adherents. They are handled with reverence. Numerous geographical locations, mountains like Sinai or Fuji, rivers like the Ganges, cities like Jerusalem or Mecca, specific groves or temples are deemed sacred by various traditions. These relate to the spiritual significance of places that become focal points for pilgrimage, worship, and connection to the divine. And sacred music, art, and architecture often profoundly enhance the experience of worship. They elevate the spiritual encounter, quiet the mind, inspire awe, and deepen a sense of connection to the holy or the transcendent. It is the earthly manifestation of that divine connection, a tangible point of veneration and spiritual focus.
In distinct contrast to these terms of faith, we have secular. This describes anything that is not concerned with or specifically connected to religion or religious matters, relating to worldly things rather than spiritual ones.
Synonyms include non-religious, worldly, or lay, as distinct from clerical. When we connect this to the broader societal picture, secular is a truly crucial concept for understanding modern societies and their governance, particularly in the West, but increasingly globally. It represents a different ordering of public life, one that consciously aims to be independent of specific religious doctrines, authority, or institutions, or at least claims to be. Secular states, for instance, often uphold a principle of separation between religious organizations and government functions, like church and state. They aim to ensure religious freedom for all citizens while maintaining governmental neutrality on matters of faith and public policy and law. Education in public, secular schools typically focuses on scientific inquiry, critical thinking, humanities, and a broad curriculum intended to be free from specific religious instruction or indoctrination, contrasting with religiously affiliated education systems. Furthermore, many public holidays in secular societies frequently celebrate cultural heritage, national history, civic values, or universal human themes rather than solely religious events, highlighting these alternative frameworks for collective timekeeping and celebration. This separation or distinction has profound implications for governance, education, law, ethics, science, and public discourse, defining much of modern societal organization and debate.
Let's discuss some key actions within the sphere of faith. First, to preach. This specifically means to deliver a religious address or sermon, typically based on scripture, often within a church, mosque, synagogue, or temple setting, with the aim of teaching, exhorting, or inspiring the congregation.
Right. You might also say to sermonize, to evangelize, especially if focused on conversion, or to proclaim the faith. To preach is a foundational act of communicating and articulating religious teachings, beliefs, and moral imperatives. It's a central practice in many faiths, particularly those focused on scripture and communal instruction. Pastors, priests, imams, rabbis regularly preach, delivering sermons during weekly services that interpret scripture, apply teachings to contemporary life, offer moral guidance, and foster spiritual growth within their congregations. It's a routine yet vital service. Missionaries, by definition, actively preach in new lands and communities, sometimes translating scriptures and adapting their message, focusing on spreading their beliefs and potentially converting new adherents to their faith. With the advent of modern technology, online platforms, streaming services, podcasts, and social media now allow for preaching globally. This demonstrates its contemporary adaptation and vastly expanding its reach and influence far beyond physical building walls. It truly has evolved from traditional pulpits to a worldwide digital reach, maintaining its essential purpose of proclamation.
A term with deep, complex historical and theological roots is to sacrifice. This historically meant to ritually kill an animal, or sometimes even a person, as a religious act of offering to a deity, often to appease anger, gain favor, or seal a covenant. More broadly, it can refer to giving up something valuable for a higher purpose or for the sake of others.
Yes, synonyms include to offer, to immolate, specifically by fire, or to dedicate. It's a powerful primal concept. The concept of sacrifice is truly ancient and profoundly powerful, evolving significantly over human spiritual understanding. While physical sacrifices, often involving animals like sheep, goats, or cattle, or agricultural produce, were central to the rituals of many historical and ancient religions, for instance, ancient Israelites sacrificed animals at the temple, Greeks and Romans sacrificed to their gods to ensure good fortune or victory. Modern faiths often interpret and symbolize sacrifice in more abstract, personal, or metaphorical terms. Myths and sacred stories across cultures frequently depict gods demanding sacrifice, either literal or symbolic, as a test of faith, like Abraham and Isaac, to atone for sins or to demonstrate devotion and submission. The evolution of this concept is fascinating. Modern faiths, while often maintaining the idea of sacrifice, largely emphasize symbolic acts. For Christians, Christ's death on the cross is seen as the ultimate sacrifice. For many, personal sacrifices like fasting, giving up food, tithing, giving up money, acts of charity, giving time resources, self-denial, or dedicating one's life to service are seen as forms of spiritual sacrifice. This highlights its evolution from literal offerings to profound metaphorical acts of devotion, commitment, and love. It continues to be a central tenet in understanding atonement, devotion, and commitment across diverse belief systems.
Another fundamental concept that intertwines morality and faith is to sin. This means to commit an act that is regarded as a transgression against divine law or religious moral principles, to deviate from expected righteous conduct.
Exactly. Other terms that convey this meaning are to transgress, to err, or simply wrongdoing in a moral or religious sense. To sin fundamentally implies a deviation from an expected moral or religious standard, a breaking of a divine commandment or ethical law, disrupting one's relationship with the divine or the community. Within many faiths, acts of penance such as formal confessions to a priest, performing specific prayers or rituals, making restitution, or seeking forgiveness directly from God are believed to help absolve those who sin, relating to structured practices for acknowledging wrongdoing, seeking reconciliation, and spiritual cleansing. Religious teachings universally provide moral guidance, frequently warning against temptations that lead to sin, like greed, lust, anger, pride, and outlining the potential spiritual or practical consequences of such actions, shaping the ethical framework for believers. It's also vital to acknowledge that what constitutes sin can vary considerably across different faiths, cultures, and even historical periods. Actions considered sinful in one tradition might be acceptable in another. This reflects diverse societal values, theological interpretations, and understandings of divine law. So what constitutes sin and the prescribed methods for addressing it vary significantly, profoundly shaping ethical frameworks and practices for atonement, forgiveness, and moral living.
And finally, for this broad segment, we have to worship. This is the fundamental act of showing profound respect, adoration, reverence, and honor towards God or deity, often performed through specific rituals, prayers, songs, and devotional acts.
Yes, synonyms universally include to adore, to venerate, or to revere. It's about expressing ultimate worth. To worship is indeed the fundamental and most direct expression of acknowledging and honoring a divine power or supreme being. It's central to most religious practice. It manifests in various forms. Communal acts of worship, where congregations come together through structured liturgies, song, prayer, scripture reading, and sacraments, fostering collective spiritual experience, identity, and unity. Simultaneously, worship can be a deeply personal and private practice, involving individual prayers, meditation, contemplation, devotional readings, or acts of service conducted in solitude or informally throughout the day. Major religious festivals and holy days like Easter, Passover, Eid, Diwali, Wesak often involve collective worship on a grand scale, sometimes involving special rituals, pilgrimages, or communal celebrations that unite large numbers of adherents and mark sacred time. Whether through elaborate public ceremonies with music and incense or quiet inward contemplation, to worship is the core expression of faith, seeking to connect with, express devotion to, and align one's life with the divine or ultimate reality.
Okay. As we approach the conclusion of our extensive exploration, we're going to delve into some more nuanced terms. This final set includes higher echelons of religious leadership, strong descriptors of belief, and some fascinating contrasting perspectives on faith and non-belief. These words help us grasp the complexities of religious experience and societal viewpoints with greater precision.
An excellent way to cap off our deep dive. Our first term in this final group is archbishop. This is a bishop, but of the highest rank. One who holds ecclesiastical authority and oversight not just over their own diocese, but over all the churches and bishops within a specific larger geographical area known as an archdiocese or ecclesiastical province. They're also known sometimes as a primate, especially if they are the leading bishop in a whole country, or metropolitan leader of a province, basically a high bishop.
So an even more elevated and expansive level of authority than a regular bishop, managing other bishops in a sense.
Absolutely. An archbishop represents a significant escalation in ecclesiastical authority and administrative responsibility within hierarchical churches like Catholic, Orthodox, and Anglican traditions. Their roles include leading provincial synods, these are formal meetings of the bishops within their province, to discuss and decide on regional church matters, fulfilling crucial administrative and doctrinal responsibilities across a wider territory. The installation of new archbishops is marked by solemn and elaborate ceremonies, often involving symbols like the pallium, a woolen vestment from the Pope in Catholicism, focusing on their significant appointments and the gravitas of their office. Furthermore, archbishops frequently serve as prominent public figures within their region or country, often addressing pressing social issues, offering moral guidance on national matters, engaging in interfaith dialogue, and representing their church at a higher level, showcasing their considerable public influence beyond purely internal religious matters. This prompts us to consider, perhaps, how such a centralized leadership structure impacts local religious communities and dioceses. Does it foster unity and consistency, or potentially stifle local initiative? It's an interesting dynamic.
Now, two contrasting terms that vividly describe different relationships with faith. First, God-fearing. This describes an individual or community that is profoundly faithful to God and deeply devoted to their religion, often exhibiting strong moral principles and reverence for divine authority.
Yes. Synonyms include pious, devout, or reverent. It implies a seriousness about faith and its moral demands. To be described as God-fearing is to possess a profound reverence and deep devotion to the divine, a quality that often translates into a life strictly guided by strong moral principles and religious teachings, motivated by respect for and accountability to God. God-fearing communities, for example, is a phrase sometimes used to describe groups characterized by their adherence to strict moral codes, traditional values, and active religious participation, often portrayed as pillars of their faith or society. Leaders throughout history and in contemporary society, particularly political figures in some cultures, often portray themselves or are described by supporters as God-fearing. They might use this descriptor to bolster their public image and establish their moral credibility among religious constituents. Similarly, heroic figures in literature, historical narratives, or even everyday compliments are frequently praised for being God-fearing, highlighting its use as a term signifying virtue, deep piety, integrity, and unwavering commitment to ethical conduct based on religious conviction. It's a descriptor that signifies profound respect for the divine and strict adherence to a moral compass derived from that respect.
In stark contrast to that, we have godless. This describes someone or something lacking faith in, or exhibiting disrespect for God or a deity, often used negatively to imply immorality or nihilism.
Right. Other terms could be atheistic, irreligious, or profane. Godless often carries a stronger judgmental tone than simply non-religious. When we connect this to the broader historical and sociological picture, the term godless stands in stark contrast to God-fearing, representing an entirely different worldview, or often an accusation hurled from one worldview at another. It is sometimes used, often critically or fearfully, to describe secular societies or ideologies that prioritize non-religious frameworks, contrasting them with religiously driven ones which are seen as morally grounded by the speaker. Historically, during periods of ideological conflict or war, think of the Cold War rhetoric propaganda frequently labeled enemies, like godless communists, using this term as a means of dehumanization, rallying support, and demonization, relating to its potent use in political and social conflicts. Philosophically, debates frequently explore godless ethics, questioning whether objective morality can exist meaningfully or be universally binding without a divine lawgiver. This explores various angles of the complex relationship between religion and morality. This raises an important perennial question about the fundamental relationship between morality and religious belief. Are they inseparable, or can one exist without the other? It's a debate that continues to profoundly shape modern thought, ethics, and societal structures.
And for our very last term today, a re-examination of a commonly misunderstood phrase: to fear God. This often means, especially in religious contexts, to show deep respect, profound admiration, reverence, and awe for God, rather than literal terror or being scared.
Precisely. Synonyms that effectively capture this specific nuance are to revere, to honor, or to stand in awe of. Here's where the nuance truly becomes compelling, and understanding it is key to interpreting many religious texts. The term to fear God is indeed often misunderstood in contemporary English, where fear usually means being afraid. But in its traditional religious sense, it doesn't typically signify terror or dread, but rather a profound sense of awe, reverence, humility, and respectful submission towards the divine, acknowledging God's power, majesty, and justice. This sense of reverential fear is believed to influence one's moral compass and daily decisions, motivating obedience and righteous living, as beautifully explained in many spiritual traditions. Biblical context, for example, in the wisdom literature like Proverbs, consistently teaches that the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. Here, fear emphasizes knowledge, respect, humility, and obedience as foundational spiritual virtues leading to a good life. Believers are typically guided by this reverential fear in their daily choices, applying this concept directly to their moral behavior, ethical conduct, and desire to live in accordance with the divine will. Furthermore, sermons and theological explanations frequently clarify that fearing God means holding God in the highest possible esteem, respect, and awe, rather than being simply terrified. Making its intended meaning of profound reverence clear for congregations and adherents, it truly captures a deep humility and profound respect for the divine, an acknowledgement of ultimate power, goodness, and mystery.
Wow, what an expansive and incredibly insightful journey we've just completed together. We've traversed a truly impressive breadth of C1 level vocabulary, haven't we? Delving into divine figures, intricate leadership structures, diverse community affiliations, crucial rites of passage, core concepts, key actions, and even touched upon the fascinating nuances of global faiths and contrasting perspectives. You've now not only expanded your C1 level vocabulary toolkit with, 40 new words and phrases, but more importantly, hopefully gained a deeper appreciation for the complex layers of meaning, the historical context, and the cultural impact behind each of them. These terms will undoubtedly empower you to engage thoughtfully, precisely, and with remarkable clarity in discussions on faith, history, philosophy, and society at large, whether you're reading, listening, or speaking.
Indeed. And this entire discussion leads us perhaps to an important question for you, our listener, to ponder further. How do these words, or maybe the profound concepts they represent, actively shape the societies you observe or perhaps live in? Thinking critically about their influence, maybe in art you see, in legal frameworks you encounter, in literature you read, and even in everyday interactions and assumptions, from public discourse right down to personal values. That kind of reflection can truly deepen your understanding of the world around you. It encourages you to see its complexities through a far more informed and nuanced lens.
We sincerely hope this deep dive into C1 level vocabulary on religion has not only enlightened you, but also sparked a new inspiration for your language learning journey and your understanding of the incredibly complex role religion plays in our world. If you found this deep dive valuable, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe to this YouTube channel, Learn English Lab. Your feedback and suggestions are invaluable, honestly, and we love hearing your thoughts for our next deep dive. What topics should we tackle next? Until next time, keep seeking knowledge, keep exploring the fascinating world of words, and continue to dive deep.